Good morning. I'm excited for this one today. Taking out for the first time the Puma Deviate Nitro Elite 3. I've actually picked these up a couple weeks ago, but haven't had a chance to run in them yet. I was doing mostly slower, longer runs. Then I was away for a week, so I'm taking these out for a speed session today. Looking forward to see how they do for me. The most impressive thing off the bat, these are the second lightest shoe that I have, just behind the new Asics Metaspeed Edge Paris. So these again are under 8 ounces, 7 point something ounces. I'll get the exact measurement when I put them on the scale. But an incredibly light shoe, tight fitting race upper, and the foam in these might be the softest feeling foam I've ever felt in the heel. It really depresses a lot. I'll show like a video of that kind of squishing in. But it's a very light shoe, has a stiff carbon plate. That's a recipe for going fast, so we'll see how these do. About 10 minutes into my warm-up, and all right, Puma, these are feeling excellent. I have to say, we may have a Goldilocks shoe on our hands here. It's not too soft, it's not too firm, it might be just right. The feel of this foam underfoot is very soft and bouncy. When you're just walking around, you can really feel the bounce coming from the heel, but I would expect that to sink in too much and feel squishy and unstable, but it really doesn't. I actually think these feel, some flies going around me. I actually think these feel more stable than the Metaspeed Edge Paris. It's not a completely stable shoe, but it's definitely not an unstable shoe. It's kind of right in the middle. So I'm appreciating the stability and the softness that I'm getting from these, combined with that really lightweight package. In that initial warm-up, I usually run around like 8:30 mile pace for my easy pace. That had me ticking over at like 7:45 pace. So I was going really significantly faster without putting in a lot of effort at all. I could really feel the bounce and roll of these shoes. I haven't experienced that much pop yet, but I'm also just running these easy paces. So we'll see when we get to the interval part of this run I'm doing today, how these feel when I'm turning up the speed. But I definitely think these are a contender for a marathon shoe for me. They're incredibly lightweight, have that really pleasant bounce and roll, even at a lower speed than my goal marathon pace. And the fact that I wasn't putting in that much effort, but they were still making me go closer to my marathon pace, is a good sign as well. So we'll see how these go on the rest of the run. 25-minute warm-up done, and I love me some super shoes. Finished just over a 5K there, 3.14 miles in 25 minutes. So I was averaging like just under 8-minute mile pace for a 5K without putting any effort into the shoes. So that's a pretty good start for the warm-up. A couple things that really stand out with this shoe. I really like the upper. It's that tight fitting race type upper, which I really like. So again, if you have a wider foot, I feel like Puma in general is not the brand for you. Puma and Adidas tend to run pretty narrow in most of their shoes. But these, the fit is great. I got these in a 12 and they fit me perfect, so true to size on this shoe. Again, it is a little tight in the toe box, The upper is very comfortable, very lightweight. I really like the tongue in this shoe. The laces actually kind of tuck into it in two different places to secure it in place, which I haven't seen before in another shoe, which I think is pretty smart. There's also some padding in the tongue right below the laces to relieve the lace pressure. So it's got just enough padding while still remaining light. So I think it's a really smartly designed upper by Puma here. And then it has their overlays with the power tape to give some structure. These are the first time they're using a new foam. I think it's called Allophatic TPU. Not sure who comes up with this, but it's a little bit different than a standard Puma foam. Supposed to give you even more energy return, and you can really feel that in the shoe. This shoe is a really great combination of softness and bounce, which makes the ride really kind of effortless. One thing I will say though, I don't really notice the carbon plate in this shoe running these slower paces. It doesn't feel incredibly propulsive, but it feels very light and bouncy and comfortable. So to me, that actually is kind of the perfect recipe for a marathon, where the shoe doesn't feel too stiff. It's giving me a nice ride and energy return. And even running at that close to 8-minute mile pace, the shoe still felt comfortable. It didn't feel like I was bogged down in the shoe, even though it's so soft. So it still felt propulsive and bouncy even at those slower paces. Now I'm gonna get into some faster intervals and see how the shoe does at those. But I'm definitely going to do a comparison video between these and the Asics Metaspeed Edge Paris, because I think they have a lot of similarities, but also some very big differences. So I'm going to definitely do a comparison of those two soon. But just in that opening 3 miles, these are a top-notch shoe. I'm really enjoying them so far. All right, just finished 2 of 6 800-meter reps, and just wanted to touch base. These are also hurt again today by the fact that I live on the side of the sun these days. It's like 80 degrees, close to 90% humidity. So it's pretty brutal for a speed workout, but you gotta do what you gotta do. I have to say, the foam does feel a little bit more responsive when you pick up the pace in these. To be honest though, I still don't really feel that much propulsion from the carbon plate in this shoe. I feel like that plate is there to just keep this foam from becoming running on a complete marshmallow, because it's so soft and bouncy. So to give any type of stability to this midsole, it needs that carbon plate for that. But I'm really not feeling like I'm loading a plate and having it explode with me as I'm towing off, like I've had with some other more aggressive carbon plate shoes. I think this might also almost be like a blend between the new Endorphin Pro 4 from Saucony and the Metaspeed Edge Paris from Asics, where it has a little bit more edge than the Saucony shoe, but a little bit more bounce and comfort than the Asics shoe. So to me, these are actually them being weaker at that higher pace, and kind of their sweet spot being marathon pace to me means these may be the best of both worlds, and these are right now the front runner for me to use as my marathon shoe in Chicago. I can see myself being more comfortable running in these for 3+ hours than the Asics shoe, but also feel like they're a little bit lighter and more nimble for 3+ hours than the Saucony shoe. So I'm definitely going to do a comparison between those 3 soon, where I use them all one right after another. Specifically, I really want to try the Asics against this, but my initial first impressions, having run some miles in the Asics and now putting these ones on, the Asics shoe I still think is a faster shoe. It feels more aggressive, it feels more propulsive, but it's also a little bit more unstable, a little bit more narrow, and a little bit less bouncy. So I think actually for longer runs, this shoe would suit me better because it has a little bit more of that softness and bounce. But for a 5K, I feel like I'd get a better time in the Asics shoe than the Puma. Good morning. It is a gloomy, rainy morning. Looks like the rain may have stopped for a little bit, so I might have a window here to try running fast. I figured I would give the Puma Deviate Elite 3 a shot on the track, running a speed session before I finish my first impression review. So I just finished 3 miles in my warm-up in the Super Blast 2, and this will be a good test too. This is the asphalt track I'm on today, and the Super Blast 2 gripped really well on this wet pavement, so I'll also get some tests for the Puma grip, but I already know it's going to excel at that because Puma grip seems to be the best outsole there is. But curious to see how I do today. I'm trying to run some tempo paces around this track in the Deviate Elite 3. If we look at the difference in the profile of these two shoes, it's pretty striking. You see how much bigger the Super Blast is. The Puma shoe looks like it's a totally different size. It's just so much thinner overall than this shoe is. This has a much wider platform. This is much more on the narrow side. The actual part where your foot goes is about the same width, but the midsole goes around a lot wider on the Super Blast, and there's much less overhang in the Puma shoe. So first things first, I think that Puma has really just upped their game overall with this shoe. This is the best shoe that I've ever used from them. And just fit and finish across the way is excellent. Start with the picture of the box there. Just when this arrived in the mail, it looks like this is a serious shoe that means business. It's got that nice distinctive box talking about the history of Puma running. Even when you undo the paper, it's like nice paper. I really feel like it's a premium product. So that was just first impression right off the bat. It's like Puma came to play this time. Then the next thing that you immediately notice when you take it out of the box is just how light this shoe is. As I mentioned earlier in the video, this is the second lightest shoe that I have. Looking at the chart there, the A6 Metaspeed Edge Paris is 7.58 ounces. This one is 7.71, so they're virtually the same weight. They're both under 8 ounces in US men's 12, which is incredibly light for a shoe in my size. This is the Puma Deviate Elite version 1, and I didn't get the 2, but what most people feel about both of these shoes, the 1 and the 2, is that they're really better suited to training. This foam is just missing a little something. It doesn't have quite the explosion of Zoom X and Saucony Power Run PB. It's just not as much energy return in this shoe, so it remains a very light shoe. This one on the list there was 8.04 ounces and had 36 of stack in the heel and 28 in the forefoot. The newer version actually gained 4 millimeters of stack and lost a little bit of weight, so that's even more impressive that the new shoe has better, lighter, bouncier foam, and it's actually a lighter shoe with a higher stack. So that has really improved upon this shoe in every way. I like using this for like some speed sessions on the tracks, just a lightweight, minimalist kind of shoe. Also has that excellent Puma grip outsole, but that one's just in another class. I'll put some stats from my run up there today. I was able to get up to 4:49 pace at the fastest in this shoe, which is pretty fast. Ended up running for about an hour and 45 minutes. About an hour of that was the warm up and the cool down. We're doing about 3 miles each time, and then the speed work was in the middle. I had multiple 1,000-meter reps with 200 meters in between, where I'd kind of walk the first 100 and then jog the second 100 to get ready for the next interval, and then had some 100-meter sprints at the end there. So that's the faster part there, and was able to keep my heart rate, where I want it for the warm up and the cool down. Went up during those sprints, obviously, but it was a very effective workout. It was long and wet and rainy, but I feel like I got some good work in today. I thought it was funny too. I've been watching the Olympics a lot recently, and there's people running, the 100 meters, the 200, 400, 1500 meters. On the Garmin watch, it converts your workout into meters rather than miles since you're running on the track. So I ran about 20,000 meters today, a little bit longer than your normal Olympic event. Something that really stood out today running in these two shoes as well. I used this for the warm up and the cool down. You can really see the difference in size between these two shoes. It's almost like the entire profile of this shoe just fits in the upper portion here, and then this is all that midsole coming out around it. It's a much smaller footprint than the Super Blast. So this shoe is more stable, but something that also was interesting to me is I feel like the Super Blast is actually a pretty propulsive shoe, especially for one this size. But after running the intervals in this shoe and then putting this one back on for the cool down, this felt like a block of wood to me. Like this aliphatic TPU in here is so soft and bouncy. This really squishes in a lot. You can really compress this foam a lot, and it just explodes on the track, really with almost no effort, this shoe is just bouncing you along and feeling really, really nice, especially at those higher paces. I should also mention the price, which is $230, which is not an inexpensive shoe, but as far as these super shoes go, it is kind of on the lower end. Some shoes are $250, $275, over $300. So this one being $230 and really being top tier shoe up there with all the Nike shoes and all the other competitors, I think is really a good value for this one. If you've watched any of my other recent videos, you'll know I'm running the Chicago Marathon this year, and I'm trying to look for the best shoe for me to wear for that. I was thinking that the Super Blast 2 might be that, because it has the same foam as this one, but it's a little bit more stable, wider package, but it has nowhere near the explosiveness of this shoe. And even comparing it to this one now, if I was going to pick one between those two, I would definitely go with this over the Super Blast. It's just got a more propulsive bounce to it. It's lighter, it's faster. For higher paces, this is definitely has an advantage over the Super Blast. The Saucony Endorphin Pro 4 is another one I was considering. Something that I appreciate about the Saucony shoes, it has a much wider footprint overall, so it's definitely a more stable shoe. This one also has some nice roll to it. The Saucony speed roll technology in this one, it just really feels like a comfortable cushioned shoe with a nice roll to it, but it's also not incredibly propulsive. The carbon plate in this is not as stiff as like this one, where you can't bend the plate at all. It's incredibly stiff. This one kind of splits the difference between these two shoes, which to me makes it might possibly be the perfect marathon shoe for me, because with this one I know it's comfortable and stable, but it's also a little bit more heavy. This one in my size is coming in at 10.05 ounces, so this shoe is almost 3 ounces lighter than this one, which makes a big difference, especially in a race of that distance. But I was concerned with this shoe, it being the lightest, but it's also incredibly narrow. This is even more narrow in the heel than the Puma shoe is. And this foam is firmer. It's not as compressive as the Puma shoe. So I feel like this shoe has more of a faster edge. Like if I was going to run a 5K, I think I would definitely go faster in this one than the Puma. But this might actually split the difference of these two shoes perfectly to be the perfect marathon shoe by kind of molding these two together for me and giving me what I like about this one and what I like about this one, but in one package. As I mentioned before, these two shoes share a very similar geometry. They're both very narrow, but I find this one to be more stable and a little bit more cushioned. So for someone my size, 6'4", 230 pounds, over the distance of a marathon, I think this is going to work better for me than this shoe would. But for a 5K and absolute top speed, I still think this one's going to be faster than the Puma shoe. And I'm not sure what Puma puts in this Puma Grip outsole, but it is just the best outsole. I was running today. It was raining all morning. It was raining during part of the time when I was running on that asphalt track. This did not slip for even a second. Even when I was picking it up to as fast as I could run, this was just glued to the ground. So, you know, Puma Grip, again, absolutely excelling. Something else that I really like with this shoe, there's padding in the tongue right where it says Deviate here. There's like a kind of a pod of padding right there. So it's right where you tie the shoe. So there's padding just in that one spot. Also, this tongue really stays in place. It's not gusseted, but as I mentioned before, there's actually a place where the laces go through right here and right here, which kind of works as a gusset. By running the laces through there, that really holds this tongue in place. Whereas I think that's kind of a weakness with the Asics shoe. This just has that really light, floppy tongue that is doesn't really do anything to pad the top of your foot from that lace pressure, and it's also not gusseted. So that tongue's just kind of an afterthought. I think they just said, let's keep it light and throw a tongue in there, but definitely this one wins as far as the tongue comfort goes and usability. So to kind of summarize, this is the best shoe that I've ever used from Puma. I think it's an excellent super shoe. It definitely rivals shoes from Nike, Asics, all the top brands. I still think that Asics shoe has got it on speed, but overall versatility, I think I'm going to use this shoe more often than I am the Asics shoe. Also, I got a new shoe rack behind me there. You may have noticed. So I got a nice colorway display here now that I'll be putting my shoes in going forward. So I made a lot of room in my closet, so that was nice. That's pretty much all I have for today. I'd like to hear from you though. Let me know if you've run in this shoe, the Super Blast 2, the Metaspeed, Edge, or Sky, how you're liking those shoes, how you think they compare, and I'll see you in the next video.